Hey guys, I'm really excited to bring in Veronika Archer, who is running a Get to Be You series, audio podcast series, where she's been able to bring together a ton of experts to really drive the point home that you can rebuild your life and really grow and heal from all this. I know we talk a lot about this on this show, but I'm really excited about what Veronika's doing. So let me welcome Veronika. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Duane. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm really glad to have you. I think what you're doing is really exciting. And, the list of people, which I don't think I have in front. No, I think I do have in front of me. You have an impressive list of different people who are going to be on this. So I'm excited for when this rolls out. But before we jump into that, can you just talk a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and how you started even getting to the point where this was a topic that you were really focused on?
Yes, thank you, Duane. So I am working with people who are recovering from traumatic relationships. And like so many of us doing this work, Duane, I know this resonates with you as well. It started, of course, from my own story. And the reason I'm doing this series, there's two things that I'm really passionate about. And one is not really related to my quote unquote trauma, if you will. And it's just that my whole life, I've been really passionate about people being genuine and authentic. And that when you are genuine, I'm just that way naturally. And I realized probably relatively recently that I've been that way my whole life and it took me a long time to realize that not everybody is being genuine and authentic, because I just sort of have the assumption that people were the same way that I am, right? Kind of that narcissistic viewpoint, maybe. But so that's one thing I've always been passionate about. And as I went through my healing process, I also discovered that, when you are really genuinely yourself, that's when magic happens, and you can really create a life that you just love to have and love to live, But more specific to this series, why am I doing this series? When I left my marriage, I was married for 16 years, and I did not realize that it was psychologically abusive. And even when I left, I didn't realize. And it took me a while after leaving even to have that realization. And a friend of mine actually added me to a Facebook group. It's a private group. It was a support group for women. And on that group, people shared articles on narcissism and gaslighting. And when I read those articles, my mind was blown. My whole marriage made sense. And that was what started the healing for me. And I started sharing on my personal social media and with my friends, oh my God, look at this information. Isn't this exciting? And I had people reach out to me and thank me for sharing because they had the same light bulb moment. And I have a very close personal friend who was struggling with the pain of a relationship that was not way in the past, but in the past for her. She was not getting back together with this person. They were not in her life, but she still had a lot of pain around it. And in sharing these articles about narcissism and gaslighting and all these topics, she realized that that's what she experienced, and that understanding started enabling her to let go of that relationship. And so now I'm just passionate about getting that information out there so people can have that understanding. And then even more importantly, taking that second step or that other additional steps of creating the life that they really want, that's focused on who they are and who they want to be with.
That's amazing. And it's what I find so incredible about this is that when you're in the fog of it, it's like the answers are relatively simple. I mean, once you start seeing the information, like you said, everything makes sense. It's just like everything starts to click. But it's so hard to get to that point. And when you do, and then if you see, and then being able to bring someone else along and see them have the epiphany and start to put things together and start to really take their life back is just an incredible feeling. I mean, it's just amazing.
It is an incredible feeling.
So on this, what really prompted you to create this series and try to bring all these people together? I mean, what was the catalyst for that?
Basically, what I just said, which is that just wanting to get the message out there and also providing people with tools to actually move forward. I'm I've worked as a biologist for 20 years. And so I'm a very pragmatic person while also being this sort of working with my intuition and emotional healing and all this emotional stuff. I'm also very just like, what steps can I take to get to where I want to be, right? And so bringing together all these experts, I mean, as you mentioned, Duane, we have over 30 experts on this series, and in every episode, we talk about tools, things
Yeah.
that people can actually start working on and implementing in their lives right now. And that was something that was really important to me is the understanding piece is important. As we've talked about, Duane, once you have that understanding, that's when you can really start moving forward. And that is like the first step. But the next step is actually being able to start rebuilding and creating. And what are the tools to do that? And okay, now I have this understanding. How do I heal? And so it was important to me to bring people together that can share tools with people who are struggling so that they can start getting out of that pain.
I think that's a fascinating approach. I mean, I know I've heard of other seminars or other events, and it's not necessarily completely tailored like, okay, there's going to be 32 people or 30 plus people, experts on here, and each one is bringing their unique tool set and talking about it and providing that as a bonus, I guess, for people. So I think as a person entering into this, to be able to be immersed with a breadth of people to where you can really see who resonates with you, look at all these different systems, I guess you could call it that, for healing. And you get to kind of almost interview a bunch of people to say, oh, you know what? These two people really resonate with me. That what they said made sense, the way they communicated, the whole 9 yards. That's why I was really fascinated about it when you were telling me about it, because I'm like, what a really great concept. I mean, instead of trying to search on the internet and find a book here and find a podcast here and maybe find a couple of YouTube videos here and try to distill what each person has to offer, it's a consolidated, package, I guess, that's free, right? If I remember correctly, it's like, you sign up for it, you can check it out.
Right, that's exactly right. And that's one of the things that I'm really excited about is that everyone on the series has their own area of expertise. So you're not just listening to the same thing over and over again, which can sometimes happen.
Right.
With these events. I mean, it's just kind of, there's similar things, but you're exactly right. And I love the way you just described that, is that all our experts have slightly different processes, slightly different methods. And we're also focusing on different pieces. So we have experts who are, like clinicians and PhDs who've studied narcissism, and they're talking about personality disorders. So if you're in a place where you really want to dive into and understand that, we have that piece of it. Then we have people who are really kind of in a recovery, like, okay, I understand, and now I need to recover from all this anger and pain and everything else I'm feeling. And then we have people who are talking about, the rebuilding and moving forward. And if you're ready to create a relationship or bring a romantic relationship into your life, how do you do that? So we have people focused on different pieces. And then also they're all different. They have, people who are really focused on like the physiological aspects and the brain neurology. We have people talking about that. And so it is like a smorgasbord. It's like a buffet where, our listeners can come and be introduced to all these different experts. And there might be, one or two or five or 10 or all of them, but that resonate with you, you, the listener, watching this right now. And so it is kind of like our listeners get to sort of interview all these different experts and figure out which tools work for them. And yes, it is free. And all of our speakers are also giving free gifts. And so if you have a speaker that you're like, oh my gosh, this person's tools, like, I just want to dive into this, you can check out their free gift and kind of try them out and see if it's working for you, and also get, like, again, real tools to start moving forward. So it's kind of, you could picture it like a convention, like come and meet all these people and, see if anyone's tools work for you. And all of it is free. Yes. All of it is free. And and again, it's not, I just realized in that description of a convention, it sounds like a sales pitch, like come in and interview people and then hire them. No, we
Oh,
are, my goal was to actually, again, provide meaningful content and tools that you can walk away with and actually start using in your life.
I think that's key. I mean, it's value, right? I mean, and so many people get stuck in like the validation stage of this to where, you know, but it traps you, and it's like, no, you want your life back. Like you, for your people that you work with, you want them to like, okay, realize what you're dealing with, and here are tools to move forward. But I have a question for you. So since you've talked to all these people, I know you've been spending a lot of time. What's the biggest takeaway from talking to all these different people from various backgrounds that's what's your biggest takeaway from all the conversations? Maybe one or two.
I'm gonna give away all the secrets,
No,
Dwayne.
just a little
No, no, I'm
tease, a little
totally
tease.
kidding.
I'm curious because I mean, it's like I was thinking about it when before we did this interview, and I'm thinking, man, to be able to have those conversations, and to have that big vision from all these different people has to be an amazing experience, even just for you.
It was an amazing experience, Dwayne. I mean, yeah, I can't even really explain, how amazing it was to talk to all these different people. And I mean, we have also true, like, I don't want it to come across as trite or fake, but like really amazing people that I was just like honored to be able to spend time with. And some of them are really big names that, your listeners are probably familiar with, like Dr. Romani and Melanie Tanya Evans, Carolyn Straussen, really big names in this in the narcissism recovery industry. But quite honestly, like every single one of the people I spoke with are an expert in what they do. And even if you're not familiar with them or they haven't been on Oprah, they still are talented and just amazing people to talk to. So it was such a great experience for me as the interviewer. You're right, Dwayne. But to answer your question, the takeaway may be surprising or maybe disappointing. I'm not sure. But there really was a theme that came out, which all of our experts said over and over again. And the way that I whittle it down to my little saying is like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. You had the power all along. You just
Oh,
have to
wow.
tap. You just have to click your shoes 3 times. Everyone who's listening has a unique story that brought them to where they're at. And the crazy part is that your story is also the key to your recovery. And yeah, and that's really the bottom line, and that you have the power to make the changes that you so badly want in your life.
When you said that, it actually kind of, I mean, not to sound goofy or whatever, but it actually kind of put chills down me, because that's one of the things I've noticed is the power is like right in front of it. It's almost like you're in a room with an unlocked door, and all you have to do is reach out, grab the handle, turn it, and open it, and you're free.
That's exactly right.
And it's one of those things that I mean, I've talked to a lot less people. I mean, a lot less professionals in the environment. I have a small cadre of different people in the community that I talk to, but that's one of the reoccurring themes is basically that there is hope, even in the darkest moment when it feels like there isn't. There is hope on the other side of it. And I think what's amazing with what you're doing, providing all this information, is consolidating all that so people can really look at it and get this message reinforced from multiple, at least that's my opinion, multiple people basically saying, look, here is a pathway from the darkness. Here's a bunch of tools that can really help you. Find the ones that work for you. Like you were talking about with the professionals that are on there, like the psychologists and whatnot. That's great for understanding the mechanics of it. And then, coaches and other people who can help you through it. I think it's just amazing. I think it's a great thing. And I think there's going to be a lot of value for people out of it. Well,
Yeah, Wayne, I love what you were saying about, opening the door and just stepping through. I mean, that's really for people that are watching this and are in the middle of that that pain when you've come out or in the relationship or come out of it and you're just sort of trying to find your way. In fact, I just was talking to somebody this past week who's just in that shutdown mode of like, I can't go on anymore. I'm trying to be strong for my kids. I don't understand where I'm, like how to get through this. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And when you open that door and walk through it, it's beautiful. The other side is beautiful. I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I've seen it and you've seen it, Duane, and you can get through it. And when you're in the midst of the darkness, it's really painful. And all of our speakers did say that sort of same thing, that there is there is a way to get to the other side. Yeah. And as you said, we do have, we have people who are really experienced in their, like PhDs and just really smart, educated people, and smart, educated people also who, but not in that sense, who have gone through the experiences like myself and you, Duane. I was so happy to have you a part of it. So people who have lived it and have healed and gotten to the other side, and we're like here, like extending our hands, like, come, let us help you, walk through this path.
Lead them through out of the darkness.
Yeah, come out of the darkness. Before, I don't want to forget to mention this too. I know this is really important to me, is that one of my big things is inclusivity. And it goes back to the you get to be you and being authentic, right? So that's true for no matter what kind of person you are. And whether it's your color or your ethnic background, your gender, your non-gender, your relationship structure, this series is open to everybody. And it's kind of interesting in this time of inclusivity, and we talk a lot about women's rights and racial injustices. I made a point to also include men, yourself, Duane, and also others who work with men, because so often we don't acknowledge that men have gone through these traumatic relationships and men don't have a safe space. And so in this particular industry, including, I wanted to make a conscious effort to include men. We also have a speaker. I'm so excited about this. This is going to be a teaser. I'm not going to give it away. We have a speaker who's doing sort of a special. It's a little bit different about how the isms affect your relationship in your life. So racism, ageism, homophobia, sexism. So we do bring that into one of our episodes because it's so important. So that's a little special that we're doing.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Man, I'm trying to say this. I know people get lost in the beginning part of this. And if they are, let's say they are talking to a professional therapist or psychologist, and they don't, or even family and friends, people who say, well, it's going to get better. And everyone, I'm sure you felt the same way. You get stuck in this mode. Well, how? You're not living this situation. You don't understand the pain. You don't understand the decade or the 2 decades of what I've been through. How in the world am I ever going to heal from this? And what I think is really amazing about the narcissistic abuse recovery community is it really provides the how. It's not just some pie in the sky, oh, just time and it gets better. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but it comes with a lot of, if you put in the work to heal yourself, use the different tools that are out there, that's how you do it. And it's not that the person changes or the circumstances change. It's really fundamentally how you change and how your perspective and perception of the world and the circumstances change that basically sets you free.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Duane. It is all about shifting your perceptions. Yeah.
So I know we talked a little bit about what's going on in the program, but I know you do coaching and stuff. So what's your particular niche of the sub niche, so to speak, your specialty that you provide to people? I mean, what's your target audience / system, I guess, if that makes sense?
Audience / system. Yeah, that's a really good question. So my focus is working with people who are recovering from these traumatic relationships. And do I have a niche within a niche? I guess in some ways I do. I do work. I am. This is something surprising that happened. I did not was not born into being like a psychic, if you will, and I still don't identify as a psychic. But during my healing process, I part of my healing was learning to trust myself, and part of learning to trust myself was tapping into my intuition. And now my intuition is so strong that people, it comes out in my work, and I connect. It's. I don't like to call myself psychic because I can't because I don't because I'm not. I can't predict the future, right? But I do see things that in my clients that I couldn't possibly know, right? I just somehow tap into it through them, through my intuition. And because of that, I do tend to end up working with people who also are resonate with that and find that spirituality is an important part of their work. I also really love working with men because it's so important to me to provide a safe space for them. And then the other thing, which I don't really talk about on this series, but is who I end up working with, is that I'm bisexual, and I've been in a variety of relationship styles, which has nothing to do with my bisexuality. Those are two separate things. And so I do tend to work with people who are in the LGBTQ community and also people who are in alternative relationship structures, just because those communities are so underserved, and I can relate to some of their experiences because of my life experiences. So
Yeah.
I do tend to end up serving those communities.
No, that's great. And I think, I mean, when you were talking about trusting your intuition, I think so many people, they push it down and they don't want to listen to it. And it's like our subconscious or our intuition is trying to tell us. And I mean, for you to be able to really harness that, I mean, what a tremendous help in being able to help people if you can kind of help see through what they're going through and pull out the parts to help them get through it.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's fascinating.
it's amazing, and something I love. And sometimes it's also a curse in a way, because I can see what somebody's future can be if they're able to heal certain things. And I think this is why I'm so passionate about my work, because I literally, when I meet someone, I talk to them, I can see it. And so
Yeah.
I want to help them get there. I'm like, oh my God, I see your future, not just hypothetically, like literally, I literally see it, and I want to get them there. But the part that's really cool, Duane, is that I'm not special in this way. This is something that we all can do. We can all access our intuition. And I really believe that, we end up in these relationships because we've disconnected from our instincts. And if you're not a spiritual person, you don't believe in that level of intuition, if you will, we all have instincts. We're
Exactly.
animals. And we actually talk about this a lot on the series. We have people who are like neuroscientists and geneticists, and
Oh, wow.
who talk about the physiology of everything. But we all have instincts, and if we have ended up in these really terrible relationships, we have disconnected ourselves from our instincts, because if we'd listened to our instincts, we wouldn't be there, right? I mean, that's something we hear over and over. I saw the red flags and I ignored them, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
relate to that.
Well, but it makes sense though. I mean, because a lot of times, most of the time, this comes up from a traumatic, family of origin, and it makes sense. I mean, and those developmental years, whenever you're basically living in an environment where your body and your mind is screaming, "This is wrong. This is wrong." Mommy or daddy's not true. This isn't right. But you can't escape it, so you have to adapt. And how do you adapt? You basically take that intuition, that feeling, and you shove it down because you can't listen to it, because you don't want to believe it. You can't do anything about it. As a child, it's not like you can. Well, I mean, some people run away, but I mean, that's got its own set of problems. I mean, you're kind of stuck in the environment. And then whenever you start going out into the world and becoming an adult and interacting with other people, those warning bells, those red flags start going off, the flares start shooting off, and you ignore it because you grew up in a situation where you had to ignore it, so it just feels normal. I mean, it's so, I mean, what you're saying, I mean, it absolutely makes sense. And to have scientific minds on your program who are going to go deep dive into the neuroscience of that is that sounds really fascinating too.
It's really cool. And you're exactly right, Duane. That is sort of the other bottom line message that came out of the series, is that we're in these situations or relationships because of our experiences as children. And so often, some people were in such severely abusive childhoods that they're aware that they had an abusive childhood. But a lot of us had experiences in our childhoods that we don't necessarily recognize as abusive or traumatic or even difficult. But when you really start reflecting, you realize that the experiences that you had as a child is what's resulting in you making the choices that you're making now. And what you said was exactly right. If we've had these difficult childhoods in some way, whatever way it might have been, we disconnect from our instinct and we shut down and we push those feelings down and kind of pretend it didn't exist. And that's why we're disconnected from our intuition and our instincts, and reconnecting that, because ultimately this is one of my pet peeves, Duane, and I might, I'm probably going to offend some people. I've already, I think, offended some people in my personal life. But people talk about like red flags and green flags and figuring out the other people in this world. Those are useful. I don't want to totally disregard that. But if you can trust your choices, the red flags and the green flags and all the other stuff doesn't matter. Because in each,
you're right.
Because there's a million red flags and there's a million green flags. We can't possibly make lists that will account for every person that we're going to meet and how to interact with them. It's not possible. But our intuition is always right. And if we learn how to trust it, then we can trust ourselves. And every situation that we're in, we can trust that we're going to make a good decision. That's the goal.
That's so spot on. And you're right? It's because see the fallacy with looking at all these red flags is you get this list and you're like going down this checklist, and if they're on it, it's a red flag. If not, oh, okay, well, it's not on my list. My intuition is saying there's something wrong here, but I'm going to ignore it because of it. No, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ignore it because it's not on my list. Yeah.
No, and I think you're right. I mean, I can even look back at my life and see, like, even with my relationship, there were I won't say red flags, and I will say there were warning bells, or there were the little things in my stomach or in my heart that's like, that's not right. And I can look back now and I can remember thinking, that's weird. And then I'd pause for a moment and go, but I love her. And, I'd make excuse. The criticality of it is to say, that's not right. And I'm going to watch that and, just maybe, not so you just, not so you eject immediately, but listen to it. I mean, I think if every one of us would have listened to the little voice saying, hey, something's not right here, and we would have moved ourselves out of the situation. And that's not even just romantic. I mean, it's romantic, it's professional, it's friends, it's, people in church. I mean, whatever. It's like you run into somebody, and some people you're like, I like that person. Like, I have a good feeling about that person. And sometimes you start that way and then it switches. And then other times you're just like, something isn't right with this. Trust your intuition. I absolutely agree with that. That's great.
I love what you said about watching it. Like, you don't have to eject immediately, because especially when we're first learning, the tricky thing about intuition is, and that I get this question a lot, is like, when is it my history and my emotions and my my fear, my insecurities? When is it that? And when is it intuition? And sometimes we might have a feeling about somebody and it's actually that person is triggering something. It's not that anything's wrong with them. It's just we've triggered something. So I like what you said about, I have this feeling and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to pay attention and see and just continue to collect information around it so that you can make decisions, but I'm not going to ignore it.
Right. And I think so often people do. But I mean, I think that's one of the biggest, I don't want to say gifts because I mean, everyone's been through, for the most part, a traumatic experience, but really it is. It's like you go through this and you come out the other side and your life is fundamentally altered. I mean, there are obviously some bad things, but I think it makes it a lot better. It's like getting catapulted up a few levels. You know, it's like you're playing a video game and, you know, hitting a thing that bumps you up 5 levels, and it's like, wow, okay, now I'm farther along. And without this experience, I know for me, had I not had this experience, had it not exploded into the situation that it became, I'd still be there. I'd still be living in that. I'd still be in that fog, and I would still fundamentally be like dying inside.
Yes, you still be dying inside. We do talk about that too a little bit on the series, but that someone calls it, I think a few people call it post-traumatic growth. Have you heard that term?
I hadn't, but I like that.
Okay. Yeah. I think Caroline Strawson talks about it on the series, but I've heard it in other places too. And it's exactly what you just described. It's like the life that we have now is so much better because of that experience. And Duane, I know that's hard for, people, especially if they've had really abusive situations. They're like, I'm not going to be grateful for the abuse, right? I'm not going to say it's okay. And it can be very difficult to get to that place of feeling that way. And we are in no ways, it'd be great if all of our lives did not experience abuse, right? But you're 100% right. Like our lives, I love what you just said, like you leveled up like in a video game, like a few levels. That's exactly what happens.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. And it's such a great place to be. And this kind of gets back to the whole you get to be you. Like when I got to that place, I was in that leveled up place and I just like feel joyful like most of the time.
Yeah.
And this isn't even about like traumatic relationships, but I just like looked around, at my work and friends and whatever. This is my other work, my corporate work before I was coaching. And people like often are like flat. They're not really like loving life. They're just doing what they're supposed to because someone told them somewhere or they got the message they were supposed to do something. And I realized that it's possible to live a life where you're actually like enjoying life and get pleasure out of it and just enjoy it. And I was like, this is what life is meant to be like.
Yeah.
And I almost felt like I have an obligation to try to like wake people up and get them out of this like fog. And that's sort of really where it started, Duane. Actually, you asked me that at the beginning, what was the impetus for this? And that's really where it started. And I described it as like, when you're the only sober person at a party. It's kind of like that feeling. When someone said maybe it's the reverse, maybe you're the only drunk person and everyone, I don't know, and everyone else is sober. I don't know which way the analogy works, but it was kind of that feeling of like, oh my God, I figured out this secret and nobody around me seems to know it. And like, I want to share it and bring everybody into my bubble.
No, I hear you on that one. So I'll put links for the program in the description and show notes.
Thank you.
If somebody wants to find out more information just on you, where can they go to find your website and where to find out more about you?
Yeah. So for the event, of course, you're going to put that in the link. It's You Get to Be You This Time. You should be able to find it. I'm Veronika Archer, and the best place to find me is probably on Facebook. Veronika Archer International is my business page. So if you Google that, you should be able to find it. And, you can also send me an email. And if you sign up for the event, you'll get my email information. I've already had people messaging me, which has been so cool. I love hearing people's stories and why they're joining or questions that they have. That's where people can find me, Veronika Archer International on Facebook, or You Get to Be You This Time, VeronikaArcher.com. You Get to Be You This Time.
Awesome. All right. Hey, Veronika, thanks for hanging out with us today. I'll put links to everything on that. Guys, make sure you check it out, and hopefully you'll learn a lot from it. Thanks again, Veronika.
Thanks so much, Duane. And before we go, I just want to thank you for having your page that you have, Dad Surviving Divorce, and putting all the resources out there for people. It's so important for people to have this message of hope and have the resources that they need to get to this, wonderful place. So thank you, Duane, for all the work that you do and putting this work out there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.